And greetings, everyone, and welcome to Buzz for Good, where we talk all things nonprofit, the people they serve and the good they do. And today I am buzzing about two very different nonprofit educational institutions that are sure to tug at your heart, hopefully your wallets, and the nearby box of tissues to wipe away a tear from your eye. I'll be sharing with you my recent conversations with two parents from a tiny academy in Salem, Virginia that works with pre-K through second grade children who perhaps have struggled in traditional schools, as well as an upcoming event where you can learn more about this place and show your support. And following that conversation, I will visit with my good friends from the nonprofit Masterpiece Alliance, which provides community and friendships for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They have formed a new partnership with a first-of-its-kind college in Wisconsin that provides for a higher education and workforce training experience for the community that they serve. You will not want to miss either of these conversations. My name is Michael Hemphill. I'm the creator and host of the TV show Buzz that airs every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. on Blue Ridge PBS, where we feature the great work of nonprofit organizations, as well as the marketing professionals affiliated with the American Advertising Federation of Roanoke, who donate their time and talent helping these life-giving organizations achieve more buzz. And you can follow along more with my work on buzzforgood.com. That's buzz, B-U-Z-Z, 4, good.com, as well as our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, all at Buzz for Good. Our next new episode of Buzz airs March the 4th on Blue Ridge PBS, starring the Franklin County NAACP and its work to raise the shade on an incredible and untold story until now about the 70 African-American men from Franklin County who fought for the Union and freedom in the Civil War in a branch of the service known as the United States Colored Troops. I invite you to check out my social media channels to find out more about their inspiring work, and I hope you will perhaps even join us at our watch party on February the 28th at 7 p.m. at First Baptist Church in downtown Rocky Mount in Franklin County. Now, we begin today's show with my chat with two mothers whose children have found hope through the Noah Christian Academy in downtown Salem, Virginia. The academy is named for the founders' two deceased baby boys, Noah and Christian Elliott. My conversation begins with Dr. Janet Hall, whose preschool-age son had been expelled from multiple programs and, in her words, was on a bad trajectory until she met the leader of Noah Christian Academy. I also chat with mom Nikita Stewart, who shares an upcoming event at Melrose Plaza on March the 7th that is as much a friend-raising as fundraising event for the Academy. I hope you enjoy. All right, well, it is my pleasure to welcome here to Buzz for Good Dr. Janice Hall and Nikita Stewart with the Noah Christian School. Thank you all so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, so happy to be here.
So, first of all, I had never heard of the Noah Christian School until you reached out to me, Dr. Hall. So if you wouldn't mind, for our listeners, just kind of giving us an overview of what the Noah Christian School is, its history, where it is, all the things.
Well, Noah Christian Academy is in our backyard here in the Roanoke Valley. It is located in Salem, Virginia. Noah Christian Academy has been around for over 20 years.
Wow.
And part of their efforts is really to enhance the lives of local youth, academically, socially, personally, and spiritually. Over the last 20 years, the nonprofit organization has really been planting seeds of life into the local youth in our community and in our family. They provide a lot of free services from tutorials, college tours, career expos, different workshops, and so on. And so this organization, this school, has really been integral to our son, speaking on behalf of my husband and I, our son's development, his growth. He just turned 6 years old and he is thriving as a first grader in Noah Christian Academy. And he was actually able to skip kindergarten because Noah Christian Academy and the teachers there really took and have been investing in his growth and development. They actually customize his learning experience early on. So through assessments to individualized instruction, they realized early on that he was very brilliant, even though he was exhibiting some behaviors that others may have labeled him as not as, not as focused or.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, you were sharing with me before we began our conversation here about maybe some of the challenges that he and you and your husband were facing with him that kind of led you to Noah Christian Academy. Would you mind sharing those for our listeners?
Absolutely. In all transparency, our son has been expelled from all of his daycares and summer camps. Okay.
Wow.
And so very early on, around 3 years old, he started to exhibit some impulsive behaviors that we just couldn't figure out, and also focus issues that we just couldn't figure out what was happening. We knew something was challenging him, but we didn't know exactly what it was. And some of the resources that we were provided weren't really getting down to the root of what was happening with him. And so the daycare settings that we were part of, unfortunately, they didn't have the resources to really identify what was going on and ways to help him. And so we started to run into labeling. Okay. And we knew that this wasn't, our son. We knew that our son should not be labeled, quote unquote, bad. We knew what that would do for his self-esteem and for his confidence. And so it wasn't until we were introduced to Dr. Elliott. We had a conversation with her, and within the first 30 minutes, she said, I know that there's nothing wrong with your son, and we're going to work to figure out where he's brilliant at. And I was stunned, because typically when you see and interact with my son, people automatically go to the negative and not to the, okay, we know he's a wonderful kid, so let's see what his strengths are. Let's see what his passions are. Let's see what makes him tick. So coming from a more inclusive perspective than just a reductionist viewpoint of, oh, he's bad. Right. Oh, he's not going to be successful. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. And so,
well, real quick, you mentioned Dr. Elliott. So tell us about Dr. Elliott, how you got introduced, and what she does.
So Dr. Sharnika Elliott has been a lifeline to us. The way that we found Noah Christian Academy was through a Google search. So we were at a time desperately seeking childcare, because he had gotten expelled from a latest childcare facility. And my husband and I both work. We have full-time careers. And so we were desperately searching for help. And so in a Google search, we just kept scrolling, and I find this Noah Christian Academy link. I click on it, and I see this website pop up with these Black children in their uniforms at some sort of, I think they were at the Congress, or they were somewhere at a State Department in Richmond. And I was just like, where is this school? And lo and behold, and mind you, I live in Salem. And so I look at the address, and I had to blink twice, because it says 402 South Colorado Street, which is 8 minutes from my house.
Wow.
So immediately we sent an inquiry in, and we got on the phone with her, and almost immediately it felt almost like a counseling session, because she saw the heartbreak in our hearts. She saw the desperation of us really trying to do what is best for our son, trying to seek the resources that we need to be successful. And she said, give me a chance. She said, give me a chance with him. Sorry.
Take your time.
And she said, let me work with him. She's educated. She has a doctorate in early childhood education, that I believe is early childhood education. But she's very skilled and she's gifted. And she said, give me a chance. And our lives have never been the same since. And we said, why don't you publicize? Like, why don't we see or hear about your organization? And she said, frankly, we allow the Holy Spirit to bring us families.
Mm.
And I knew in that moment that this was God ordained. And I knew in that moment, it just reaffirmed my faith that he was going to be okay and that God is with us, because we have gone through so much with other organizations and other schools, and not that they haven't tried. I'm sure that they did the best that they could, but it wasn't until we found Noah Christian where we found a holistic learning environment. So not only is he getting support academically, but they're also encouraging him and motivating him spiritually. Like, my son knows so many Bible verses. He can pray for you at a drop of a hat, because he's loving, he's caring. And while us as parents, we have a lot to do with that upbringing, Noah Christian Academy has been the perfect complement to really take him to the next level. And not that we don't still experience challenges, but it's even better experiencing it with a village of people, of parents, of teachers who've been there for years, who care, and not just care, but love our children. I don't know where we would be without them.
Ooh. Well, again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Dr. Janice Hall and Nikita Stewart with parents who at the Noah Christian Academy. And Dr. Hall, thank you so much for your
Yes.
heartfelt transparency and openness and sharing your personal story. And I'm honored that you would share that with us, and thrilled that you were able to find the resources that you need for that precious son of yours at Noah Christian Academy.
Yeah.
Now, if you're listening and intrigued by what is happening at Noah Christian Academy, you can find out more at an incredible event that they have coming up on March the 7th at Melrose Plaza. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Nikita Stewart to share with us what is happening at Melrose Plaza on March the 7th.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael, for having us on. This is just a incredible opportunity. As you can tell, the parents are very passionate about Nora Christian Academy because
Yeah.
of what it does for our children, and then inadvertently what it does for us, right? And so this event,
We as parents are only as good as our kids are. So I mean,
absolutely.
it is a family blessing, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And so with this passion, this the parents actually decided to rally to help save our school and ensure the teachers are well taken care of and the students are well taken care of. And so,
Now,
as you
would you say,
mentioned,
I'm sorry, would you say save our school? Has there been some challenges of late?
yes, there has been as of the shift in policy and things and funding as of last year, the school took a hit. So Dr. And when she first started Nora Christian Academy, it was to allow access to children who are brilliant, who have the capabilities, but don't have the funding
Yeah.
for a private school education. And so with that, she was getting supplemental funding from, the government and other grants and things like that, so that these children can have access to a well-respected private school education. Once those grants left and the government funding was taken away, then there came a problem with funding, right?
Yeah.
Because now parents who haven't had to pay because they can't afford it aren't still paying. So there's still, some challenges financially. And so because of that, many of the teachers take on two, three jobs
Hmm.
in addition to being educators for our students. And so when the parents heard this recently, we said, oh no, not in our house. We're going to do whatever we can to bring funding in so the teachers can teach and not have to worry about doing other odd jobs outside or, quite frankly, not get paid at all. And so that's why we're having this event on March 7th from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Melrose Plaza. We're calling it a Give and Groove Saturday. And it's exactly what it sounds like, Michael. Give and groove. And so there's going to be music, a live DJ, line dancing, fellowship, and caricatures. Of course, we'll have some food. We'll have a photo booth. It is really going to be a community event to help us raise $21,000, which will directly go towards tuition assistance, school supplies, and other operational needs that continue to allow these families to be served. And so it is going to be a fun time. The actual ticket event is only $35. But of course, when people come, our hope is that they're going to donate extra and have fun with the line dance and the DJ environment and just have a really, really good time because, hey, life can sometimes be challenging. So we want to create a space for the community to come out and have fun while giving towards a good cause. So we're asking, as far as our call to action, we want to have at least 300 people in the room. So if you're listening right now and you care about children, you care about education, and you simply want to strengthen our community and come out, you can buy a ticket, bring a friend, or we know there's some businesses that want to donate. And so there are sponsorship opportunities too as well for business owners. And so if you can't make it, that's okay. There's other ways that they can give to our school if they're not able to make it as well. But we want to see people out. We want you all to interact with the parents, interact with some aspects of the children on March 7th, 1 to 4 p.m., Melrose Plaza, Give and Groove Saturday. Let's dance. Let's make sure the school is still standing strong for the next 20 years plus.
Wow. Wow. I don't know if you are the marketing director for Noah Christian Academy, but you should be. That was spectacular. Now, for more information about this event, if people want to go and search online, uh, there's a website that they could go to.
Yes, so ticket sales are on Eventbrite. They can search Give and Groove Saturday on Eventbrite, or they can go to the Facebook page, Nora Christian Community Center page, which is in Roanoke, Virginia. We're posting the links. The parents are reposting it as well. So either Facebook, our Facebook page, or you can go to Eventbrite to purchase tickets.
Okay. And it's for those who want to go to their website, that probably is a hub for all of those different channels. It's noah-christianacademy.org. So Noah, Noah hyphen christianacademy.org. Well,
Thank you.
yo, Nikita Stewart, Dr. Janice Hall, Noah Christian Academy. Thank you all so much for coming on to Buzz for Good and sharing your personal story and this way for all listeners to be involved in the great mission that Noah Christian Academy is doing. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Take care.
And that was my conversation with two inspiring mothers at Noah Christian Academy. Next up, at the other end of the educational spectrum, I reunite with the nonprofit Masterpiece Alliance, which is also headquartered in Salem, Virginia, and provides for community and friendships for adults with intellectual and emotional disabilities. In early 2025, we produced a TV episode of Buzz about this inspiring organization. Now, Masterpiece Alliance has recently formed a relationship with Shepherd's College in Wisconsin, a one-of-a-kind institution that provides higher education and workforce training for the population served by Masterpiece Alliance. My conversation begins with Scott Habib, Masterpiece Alliance's founder, and joined by a representative from Shepherd's College. Well, it is my pleasure to welcome here to Buzz for Good my good friend, Scott Habib, who's founder of Masterpiece Alliance, joined by someone not from Southwest Virginia, but who certainly has a heart for what is happening through Masterpiece Alliance, and that is Brian Canwright, who is president of the Shepherds Foundation, which is the umbrella organization for Shepherd's College. So welcome to you both.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here again, Michael.
All right. Well, so Scott, let me start with you, just so you can kind of help me set the scene for the community of people that we're talking about here. So if you would talk about kind of what's the landscape for folks with intellectual disabilities post high school.
Yeah, and Michael, you'll recall that Masterpiece Alliance exists because there is this cliff or this drop off that happens after high school. So people with disabilities in the high school years or the K-12 years have at least 7 hours a day of school. After that, to say there's nothing is not quite 100% accurate, but it's getting really, really close to being accurate. And so Masterpiece Alliance exists to step into that gap and create community. And there's all sorts of needs that we have post K-12. We need friends, we need jobs, we need training, we need supports. We also need some type of further education, whatever is appropriate to us. And in the neurotypical world, I mean, there's so many different options, right, for training from all different types of degrees at all different types of universities, different lengths of time, different types of certifications, different opportunities. And there's just very, very few options post K-12 for students with intellectual or developmental disabilities. So Masterpiece Alliance's mission and vision is that folks with disabilities would be in community, and our mission is to make that happen. And our long-term vision is that this Roanoke Valley would be a place that we call an epicenter, where it just the whole landscape changes for the world of disabilities, and frankly, that the world of disabilities actually just becomes so integrated into the rest of the world that it is sort of this seamless one and the same. So it would make sense that in this future vision, this epicenter vision for the Roanoke Valley, that there would be outstanding post K-12 educational options for students of all abilities, which is really what drew us to learn more about Shepherd's College up in Wisconsin.
Well, and you're obviously passionate about this from wearing many different hats. You were a longtime educator in the public school system who interacted on a daily basis with, these kids who have intellectual disabilities. You have a daughter who has an intellectual disability, and so you've kind of seen her world post high school and what that looks like, and that kind of inspired you to found Masterpiece Alliance.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. In fact, as a longtime high school administrator, one of my roles for many years was to sit in what are often called the exit IEP meetings. So these students, they might be 18 at the traditional senior year, or they might have stayed for some additional services through the age of 22. And it's the final IEP meeting that basically says, here's what you did in school and good luck in the future. And for so many students with intellectual or developmental disabilities, no educator would ever intend this to be the way it sounds, or, this is not, it's just the way life, unfortunately, works more often than not. The tone of the IP meeting is a very kind, hey, we're glad you're here and hope you do something later on one day. See you later.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't sit right. I mean, everybody is a masterpiece. Thus our name, Masterpiece Alliance, and all are created for purpose. And that purpose usually requires some further training or learning post K-12 education.
Right. Well, as it does for any student.
Everybody.
Right. Everybody. So no difference there. And so that kind of segues into Shepherd's College, based in Wisconsin. But how did you first find out about them, Scott? And then perhaps you can help me introduce our audience to Brian Canwright.
Absolutely, yes. So the Masterpiece Alliance team has been fortunate enough to participate in and present at a conference called the Disabilities in the Church Conference. It's put on by a group called Key Ministry. It's been at various places the last year, and actually this coming April, it will be in McLean, Virginia. So perhaps some listeners might want to check that out. And there are many things I could say wonderful about this conference, but for Masterpiece Alliance, one of the great things is we have met people from all over the world, frankly, but in particular the United States, who are doing wonderful things in the world of disabilities. We have then been bringing them to the Roanoke Valley through some of our events that we host, so they can become resources for people in the Roanoke Valley. We have connected local churches here, for example, to folks from Texas and Ohio and Wisconsin. So at that conference last year, our operations director was in a session done by some folks from Shepherd's College, and she came away and said, we need to learn more about this. We need to bring these folks to Roanoke Valley. So we had a luncheon back in November. We brought in Brian and then also the president of the college, Tracy, and they sort of blew us away. We had a night that night where you could come, parents and educators and students could come learn more about post K-12 opportunities, such as Shepherd's College. There are a few others, some local organizations such as No Bounds were there as well. But we have really fallen in love with what they're doing at Shepherd's College, and frankly hope that one day in the future, something like that will exist here in the Roanoke Valley.
Beautiful. All right. So welcome again to Buzz for Good. You've been listening to my conversation with Scott Habib, founder and executive director of Masterpiece Alliance, who has just introduced the great work that Shepherd's College, based in Wisconsin, does and is kind of helping do here in the Roanoke Valley by introducing itself to the community of adults with intellectual disabilities. And with that, I'd like to shift our conversation to Brian Canwright, who's the president of Shepherd's Foundation. And Brian, first of all, welcome back to the Roanoke area here. And if you would kind of share the history of Shepherd's College.
Yeah, Shepherd's College actually was started by a parent organization called Shepherd's Ministries that has an over 67-year history. And it was started by a family who gave birth to a son with Down syndrome.
Mm,
And they didn't really know what the options for him would be. They were speaking with their physician, and their physician said, well, you actually, there's this institution down the street. If you take him there, you can place him and he can stay there for life. And they went and they visited. And what he came back saying from that experience was, I saw animals that had been treated better at zoos than what I
mm,
saw happening. This is in the late 50s, right?
yeah.
And I had the privilege of speaking with this man. He was 103 at the time that I was talking to him. And if
Right.
he could have only imagined what would have happened, he went back to a Sunday school group and they were considering what's something we can do and a need we could meet in the community. And it turns out he stood up and said, what about families like ours? What could we do to meet the needs of families like ours? And the response to that question and God's blessing on the efforts to those responses has for decades led to Christian educational opportunities for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In its latest iteration in 2008, Shepherd's College was established as a 3-year residential accredited college specifically for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, focuses on 4 pillars of training: life skills, job readiness, faith journey, and personal development. And we also have trades that we train students in for jobs. It's real important for us that we place student in gainful employment. We have 3 current majors in culinary arts, hospitality, and technology. And then we have a residential program so students can live on campus in a very structured and supported setting and help them grow incrementally in those skills at their own pace. And because of that structure and framework, in the last 17 years, we've had the privilege of serving students from 38 states and
Mm,
9 foreign countries. So you can see how big of a problem it is that you guys were addressing earlier about that cliff in services, that people from all over the country would come to southeastern Wisconsin because they're looking for opportunities like this. And as you guys were pointing out before, the average student exiting high school, if you go on the FAFSA page and you look up school codes, there's over 7,000 options for the traditional high school graduate. There's one fully accredited college for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so that we have a lot more work to do beyond Shepherd's College, just the broader community and society of creating these options so that those families can um, address the problem of isolation, of a lack of purpose, of a lack of community that becomes so true and prevalent among the group after high school.
spectacular. Brian Canwright with Shepherd's College. Thanks for that. Now, you mentioned three different, I guess, curricula that is offered: technology, horticulture, and culinary arts. Why were those three, I guess, implemented for the student population that you serve?
Yeah, for one, they mapped on well to the interests that our students had, as well as
Hmm.
marketplace needs. So it's kind of a combination between the research of those two. We do currently have a horticulture, but it's evolving into a hospitality, which is actually going to expand it to an even greater set of employment outcome
Yep.
opportunities. What's unfortunate is nationally, the statistics are that less than 20% of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities are employed. And we know how important employment is to the exercise of our potential, the dignity of work, of community, and all that. And so our accreditor requires that we place students when they graduate at 70% or higher in their field of training. We've been blessed to see students placed above 90% of gainful employment
Bravo.
across different kinds of industries. And so when you address that piece, I mean, what follows it, right? Not only the income, not only the community, not only the dignity, but the life change that can happen with the right kind of training that's contextualized for this student learner can really make a difference in their lives.
Beautiful. Once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Brian Canwright, who is the president of Shepherd's Foundation, which oversees Shepherd's College in Wisconsin, that provides college essentially for adults with intellectual disabilities, as well as my good friend Scott Habib, founder of Masterpiece Alliance, based here in the Roanoke Valley, which provides community and friendships for the adults with intellectual disabilities. So, Brian, let me get back to you. I've got kind of like a two-part question here. One being, I'd like for you to talk about kind of what's the biggest hurdle that your students have to overcome when they get to college? And I asked that because a few years ago I was talking with a similar type operation here in the Roanoke Valley, and she said that oftentimes it's there have been so few expectations placed on adults with intellectual disabilities that sometimes like the work ethic is not there because no one unfortunately gave them a chance to ever succeed. So there's my question is kind of that's on one side of it, and then on the other side, how challenging is it to get potential employers to hire someone who has an intellectual disability, even though they may have a college degree from Shepherd's College?
Yeah, great questions. Um, First, I would say one of the biggest barriers I would identify is me, right? And my own story in coming to Shepherd's College, in that I overlooked the dignity, purpose, and value of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that perspective was changed dramatically from my experience working with students here. Even coming in with all the good intentions, I think unfortunately the biggest barrier they face is the way that they are perceived by society at large, and the way that their purpose and their value is overlooked. I don't know who quoted it, but I've heard it, and I think it often applies and resonates with what you said previously. But there's a soft bigotry to low expectations, right? It's this view that that really minimizes and doesn't see the God-given potential in every person. And our students have those abilities. They just need unique opportunities that help them discover and maximize those. And that's exactly why we exist. And so another challenge is the lack of options, right? Because that's a reality. And that's part of what we're trying to address, and part of what excites us about this relationship we've been building with Masterpiece Alliances. Rather than everybody coming to Wisconsin, which is an impossibility, we can only be a certain size and be qualitatively healthy.
Even though I hear it's beautiful this time of year.
This time of year, I would highly recommend not coming. But but to our surprise, people from Florida even move here to go to school, even though they have to live here in February. So our objective long term is, and this is currently underway, in fact, in Florida, is to launch satellite campuses that help bring this mission to life, so that barrier is not so that distance is not a barrier.
Yeah. Scott?
I would say, Brian, to what you said about the bigotry of low expectations and that being a barrier. We've had a couple of times now where we've had folks from Shepherd's College here in the Roanoke Valley, and we've had parents and other folks out. And one of the things I've said, because these parents, many of them are good friends of mine who I know quite well, and I've said, you're about to hear about a college, and what I need you to do first is to put out of your mind the idea that your child couldn't do this, the idea that your child couldn't go to Wisconsin and live in a college campus, because obviously nobody loves these adult students more than their own families, but just what society has told us is there's these limitations and just things they can't do. And so if someone's own parent would go into a meeting with Shepherds thinking, well, my child probably couldn't do this, then how much more so might the rest of the world? Now, what's been really fun is in both of those instances, people come away saying, maybe my kid could go there. And what I really love is for some of these students who now they're rooting for Shepherd's College the way I did for Virginia Tech growing up, right? Like there was nothing better than to go to Virginia Tech, and there still really isn't. Sorry, Shepherd's College. But they're coming away, cheering about the idea of Shepherds, and their families are seeing, oh, well, if those kids did it, maybe my child could too. So I think that makes
Great
sense,
point.
Brian. That's one of the barriers that would exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right that the parents, as much as they are the biggest advocate and love their sons or daughters, can be a part of that barrier, right? Because they want to create this protective bubble around them. And, I have a history of working at Shepherd's for 17 years. And one of the roles that I worked in here previously was student recruiter. And so I would have the privilege of walking alongside the families, and I would hear about their story. But often I would get a call from somebody out of state, right? And they don't even know why they're calling me. Like, I can't believe I even picked up to call you, but I'm kind of interested in what you're doing, but my son or daughter would never go to college. They would never do that out of state residential. Well, then they come and they experience it. They see a student here who reminds them of their son or daughter, and then they are opened up to the possibility. So we know that transformation can happen with parents. And to your question previously about business owners, it happens with them too. In the first years that we were trying to get internships here for our students. That's even pre-employment, that's a part of our program that they do internships. It took a lot of convincing, right? A lot of knocking on doors to get some to open, but gratefully we had a handful that cracked their doors open and gave our students that opportunity. And it wasn't within a few years later from there, we had more internship sites asking for placement than we could fill because word started to spread. And the difference in the situation was that these were students that were coming prepared and with training and with a trusted organization to partner with them on, right? So if a student was struggling, we could bring them back in-house, give them some additional training, send them back out. What we found with employers either is they are too afraid because they've never done it before. So there's that fear and they need an advocate to come along and help raise awareness about what's possible and how it could work. Or they did it and it didn't go well. And if it didn't go well, it was most likely because it wasn't a good placement. The individual may not have been trained properly or prepared. And that's why education is so important and training to help equip a student to thrive in there, not only for the person who goes on to work, but for the employer.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Brian Canwright, who is the president of Shepherd's Foundation and overseeing Shepherd's College in Wisconsin, a college for adults with intellectual disabilities, and Scott Habib, who's the founder of Masterpiece Alliance here in the Roanoke Valley, which provides community and opportunity and support for adults with intellectual disabilities. I think we oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this right now. I've been talking about kind of the deficits that adults with intellectual disabilities have, but what are, from both of your perspectives, kind of the unique gifts that adults with that folks with intellectual disabilities might have, not only for a college and in society, but for an employer as well?
I can start there. I could talk about this all day, I think, but I'll try to limit it to like a few key highlights. As a person of faith, there are some values like faith, hope, and love that are meaningful in my own life. And I would say the best examples I've ever seen of those three characteristics lived out are through the lives of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Like I have people's faces and names that come to mind when I think of those characteristics, And so if we have the right eyes to see them for who they are, I think what we can learn from our relationships and our friendships with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities can have a profoundly transformative impact in our own lives. I would also say I've seen what I would describe as world-class performers in the work environment, right? They may have some particular challenges that they have to overcome or some accommodations that they need in a workspace that's related to a diagnosis of one kind or another. But when it comes to effort, when it comes to motivation, when it comes to stewarding the gifts and the resources that they have to accomplish a task at work, they could put me to shame, in terms of what I've seen accomplished. So one story that I have that forever changed me, and it sounds like the simplest thing, but if you could have been there, it had such a profound effect on me. I was having a particularly challenging day at work here in one of my early years working at Shepherd's College. And I happened to go into one of the student living areas. I was one of the trainers teaching them how to make recipes of food and things like that, right? And I was kind of task oriented. We need to get X, Y, and Z done. And this young man was sitting on the couch and he said, "Hey, hold on just a second. Like, how are you doing today? Are you okay?" Like, he was just checking in on me to see how I was doing. And we had a great conversation, completely transformed the trajectory of my day. But he saw me. He didn't have any pretense. He was genuinely concerned, and it made all the difference. And from that point, changed my perspective, not only that day, but from that point on. So there's so much to be benefited and gained from friendships and relationships with people who happen to have an intellectual disability.
Rod, how about you?
Yeah, I love Brian's answer. And I couldn't help but think, though, too, in all that, when he was talking about jobs and accommodations, anybody who's ever had more employees than themselves to worry about has had to make accommodations for folks, right? It's had to, there's never a one size fits all, whether you're neurotypical or not. So I think sometimes we need to put some context here that, like, we we this isn't so normal, so abnormal. I'm sorry to have
Yeah.
to kind of tweak things to support folks. You know, for me, and Michael, you've been to some Masterpiece Alliance events, and I
Yeah.
tell this to people all the time. Folks will come to some of our things, whatever we're doing, and they'll leave and they'll just say things like, "That was the best night I've had," you know, or they'll even be in tears, just saying, "I'm so happy I needed this." And I love pointing out to people why that is, at least why I think it is. Why I think it is, it's not because by going to this event with people with disabilities, you did such a charitable thing that now you feel good about yourself. What it is I think you experienced life the way it was meant to be lived. We were not designed to have all this pretense and all this like, image we put up, for the world, right? Like when someone asks us how we're doing, we don't ever tell the real answer because we don't want someone to know all our junk. So we go through our lives putting this facade, and we want to look right and be considered right, right? And when you step into the world, and I'm painting this broadly, obviously people with disabilities are not all the same, just like neurotypical people are not all the same. But when you step into the world of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, it's like the facade just strips away. Nobody cares, if you were a good husband or if you were a good school administrator or if you failed at being a parent that day or whatever. You just get to experience love and being loved just because you exist. And it is so freeing that you walk away thinking, I needed that. Like I got to
Mm.
be who I was meant to be. So then I look at that both from a, hey, let's build a community and invite people into it. But I also look at at the Roanoke Valley where we are blessed to live. And earlier I mentioned this vision of an epicenter, this idea of the valley being changed. And we look back one day and we have folks moving here and retiring here, and we have employment and we have education and we have accessible recreation and respite care and all these different services and things going on. And here's what I think will happen. I think the world of disabilities will actually become an economic engine that drives growth in our valley. Because look, if you go into a business, wherever you go to, you're going to walk into some kind of store. There's a good chance you're going to run into a neurotypical rude adult, or some type of interaction with a neurotypical person that's not going to be affirming and cause you to walk away saying, yeah, that was what life's about. But I'm telling you, if every business in our valley and then some employed trained and educated adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, then life wouldn't be perfect, but you would walk into business after business and say, I feel better about myself. Like this is how life is meant to be lived. And so I just think there's so much to offer. And the idea that I think Brian said a statistic, something like 20% are gainfully employed people with disabilities. That's a shame for people with disabilities, but it's a shame for our community if
Hmm.
we are missing out on the opportunity to experience sort of what life is supposed to be like.
Mm. Brian, I just wish Scott was passionate about this work. I mean,
Well,
I, I imagine you have to come here. You're trying to drag it out of him. It's like, would you please just, share your story?
when I hear him talking, I feel like he and I are in this insider club of like the best kept secret.
Oh yeah.
I'm telling you, people are missing out. If you don't know somebody, if you haven't been involved in some way, or had a relationship, like we get more out of it than we put into it. I guarantee you.
Mm. Mm. Well, again, here on Buzz for Good, joined by Scott Habib, who is the founder of Masterpiece Alliance, and Brian Canwright, who is the president of Shepherd's Foundation, overseeing Shepherd's College in Wisconsin, a college for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I want to get to, what does the future perhaps look like with both of your organizations potentially coming together down the road. But before I get to that, Brian, I do want to talk about, I mean, every parent who has sent a child to college knows that there is a cost associated with that. And Shepherd's College certainly is not immune to that. And if you go to your website, you'll see like the cost for tuition, room and board, and all the things is about what you would pay for in any private school. It's about somewhere in the $60,000 range. So but I know that's the advertised cost. What is the, I guess, the real cost for the average, student, and how does that get funded?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right that there's often sticker shock sometimes for people who haven't maybe spent some time investigating what is a residential private nonprofit, college educational experience cost. I'll start by saying it actually costs us more than what's posted there. So off the top, we do some additional fundraising just to bring that cost down, even from the beginning. But even that would be out of reach for the vast majority of families. And so there's a number of ways that this becomes accessible to families. Um, One thing we do is we raise scholarships. We make a big commitment every year above and beyond what we do off the top to raise additional scholarships for needs-based families. And
Mhm.
that can vary in range based on what the level of need is and what other funding sources are in play. But we raise about 35% of our annual budget every year to make that commitment to help families who have financial need be able to come. And when they pull these pieces together, we have families here whose household income is less than the annual cost to attend
Mhm.
because they've been able to pull together those resources. Within our own state, we happen to have some great funding options. That's through the Medicaid waiver program. That's a disability specific program that provides some funding for some of the supports that exist in the Student Life program. All adults after they're 18, regardless of their income, do qualify for Social Security funds that
Mhm.
can help cover some of the costs. Those tend to be in the $9,000 to $10,000 range annually now that they get. And we've been incredibly blessed with Department of Vocational Rehab. I think now in about 15 different states, we've been approved that grants that exist for job training for adults with qualifying disabilities
Mhm.
can go to help fund the education. Now, it varies wildly from state to state. There's some states that are paying the full remaining cost, and then there are some states that would be more in the 5 to 10,000 range. But once you start pulling together the Social Security, perhaps Medicaid waiver funding, vocational rehab, the scholarships that we provide, that's how that seemingly insurmountable number for some families becomes within reach, and we can help make it happen. And we've been blessed to have a full distribution of different economic levels represented here among the students who attend because of that.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Yeah, I mean, because cost obviously is a barrier, and I would imagine maybe there's even going back to that parental prejudice. It's like, well, what's going to be my return on investment, for my child, who again perhaps never had that many expectations, employment wise. So I imagine you're probably also trying to calculate, well, there are different forms of compensation, not just financial, but emotional and psychological that, you're investing in your child and in yourself. I mean, the, for a parent, to see a child go and flourish on his or her own, has got to be a huge, benefit in their lives.
Massively, yeah. So on the one level, we mentioned before the employment outcomes, right? That's an economical return on investment immediately if you're going from unemployment to employment. And even if you're only working on a part-time basis, which many of our students choose to remain about part-time, and that's in part because of their benefits, government
Mm.
benefits that they have to balance to be able to receive the health care. And so therefore they'll often work at part-time, but they've been offered full-time in some cases as well. There's the economic component, as you mentioned. Anytime a student learns a new skill that doesn't require somebody else's time and attention to support them through, whether that's planning a meal, whether that's going to the bank and withdrawing money for an outing that they're going to go in, or paying their own bills, whatever it would be, there's a relational, there's an emotional, there's all kinds of returns that come with whatever degree somebody is capable of being independent, has a lifetime impact on whatever their support network would have to provide otherwise. So,
Mm.
and then the other one that's huge is the social component, right? Just our students, just like every other college student around the country, walk away with lifelong friends and community, and this identifier as being a Shepherd's College alum and graduate, perhaps with even greater zeal than Scott has for Virginia Tech. Uh, so, so that sort of badge honor of, hey, I'm a soaring eagle from Shepherd's College is a meaningful takeaway for this. But employment and independence, and then of course, how can you quantify just a sense of purpose, right, and a sense
Mm.
of meaningful contribution and community as opposed to isolation? and
Yeah.
atrophy, which is the alternative. So we would see it as a real worthwhile investment for the family that's considering that.
Yeah. Scott?
But Brian, I was thinking so just a week or so ago, we had the director of admissions from Shepherd's down here and did a recruiting visit. And we had a nice full room of parents and students to come learn about this. And my wife was there, and we have our youngest is a junior in high school right now. So, for the fourth time, he's our fourth child, we're thinking about colleges and stuff. And one of the real focuses of the gentleman who was here sharing was about the life skills as well that these students learn, right? So they go through Shepherd's College and they have all sorts of training. And part of it is even things like grocery shopping and laundry and cleaning your house and so forth. And thinking about our son, who we love dearly, by the way, in case he ever listens to this podcast, but like if a student went to Shepherd's and he went to Virginia Tech, I guarantee you they would leave Shepherd's with more meaningful, transferable life skills, right? Regardless of what the content you learn, but life skills than probably my son's going to get. He'll probably graduate from Virginia Tech, and we'll still worry about his ability to make his bed and clean his room and take care of grocery shopping. We'll have to learn that another way, another time. But those skills as well too, I think, from what I've heard about Shepherd's, are really right there with the employability skills.
That's correct. Yeah, we have dorms, halls, and apartments. And so by the time they get to the apartments, which is, based on their demonstrated ability to grow in independence, but they have a weekly grocery budget. They're creating a meal plan. They're preparing their meals. They're negotiating it with a roommate. They're living in an apartment on their own, And as I've toured families over the years who have come to Shepherd's, who have had older siblings that graduated from college, they will say exactly what you just said, Scott. They're like, I wish my son or daughter that went to the University of Wisconsin or wherever it might have been, right, had learned these skills because you're right that those don't tend to get taught at those areas, and they're so valuable and important to life after. And our students do a really good job of learning those.
Beautiful. Well, coming to near an end to our conversation here with Scott Habib of Masterpiece Alliance and Brian Canwright of Shepherd's College, both working in the world of helping adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I do want to, let's talk about, I know, so Brian, you were, Shepherd's College had some folks here in the Roanoke Valley recently to just talk about the benefits of Shepherd's College for the community that's, part of Masterpiece Alliance.
Yeah.
But are there other conversations happening about maybe some collaborations here, more formal in our region sometime, I don't know, in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so we're in a really exciting season. Currently, as I mentioned before, the need exceeds what we could ever fulfill here in Wisconsin. And so we've been following a vision and strategically planning how we might be able to make a greater impact beyond what happens here in southeastern Wisconsin. We are actually currently in the process of opening our first satellite campus. It's called the Empowered for Life Center in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, that is targeted to open in August of this year, 2026. And it's a model that takes the best of what we have to offer here and converts it into a 2-year commuter model. So it's a bit leaner, right? Because it doesn't have to have all the residential, but it provides a great resource to a community where there's a dense population of students that can access it on a commuter basis. And so that model, as we establish our first, is one we hope to replicate in other locations. And when certain locations meet certain conditions that are sort of provide the soil for which to transplant that model, it would allow for that same 2-year Empowered for Life Center model of Shepherd's College to be established elsewhere. So we've already been dreaming along with Scott and their vision for this epicenter. We would love for one of these satellites of Shepherd's College to be one of those options that comes to the Roanoke Valley. And so there's more to do. We have to complete this project currently underway in Florida. We have a second one that's closely following it, potentially in Tennessee, that we are continuing to work through as well. Okay. But we've already initiated these conversations, and we'll we'll continue to engage them in the process in hopes that under the right conditions, we too could similarly launch a satellite version of this and be a part of that epicenter. We talk about being being a part of an ecosystem of services, for families with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And what you need ultimately to make it happen is the right partner. And what we've learned about Masterpiece Alliance, I mean, their mission, their heart, their network, and their vision and their connections is all what would make that a real possibility. And they're incredibly sacrificial and generous in opening their connections to help facilitate something like that. And that's what's necessary to make this vision come to reality. So we're hopeful and optimistic that as we successfully launch this first one, that Roanoke Valley would be one that follows not too shortly thereafter within that 5-year framework you mentioned, hopefully shorter than that even.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
that's exciting. Michael, Masterpiece Alliance, we believe that if we all win, we all win. Right. So that's how we're looking at all our partnerships and relationships that we are forming. And I say that because some people could say, well, I mean, if Shepherd's College comes in, there won't be room for any other education things. So there's almost a competition. Well, nobody would say, oh, we don't need Radford University. We already have Roanoke College. Or we don't need Virginia Tech. We already have UVA. Oh, actually, we don't need UVA. But all the rest of these, right? Like we expect neurotypical graduates have all sorts of options, right?
Yeah.
And the more colleges, every community would say the more colleges we have for neurotypical students, the better our community is going to be. They are economic engines in a valley. So I say that to say, for example, No Bounds. We love what Dr. B is doing over there, right? We think that is so awesome. And so
real quickly, just for our audience who doesn't know about No Bounds, No Bounds is a nonprofit in and of itself that's headquartered in ECPI in Roanoke and led by Dr. Tina Bandari. And she has been working over the last several years helping adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities get job skills and job training, on a collegiate level to enter the workforce. So I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, that's good that you clarified that. And so we want to pour gas on their fire, right? And everybody else like that. So for example, we had a local employer reach out to us recently to ask if we knew about anybody who might fit a certain job that they needed. And one of the first things we did was reach out to No Bounds and say, hey, you might be able to do this, and try to connect folks together. So I want to clarify that when we talk about a Shepherd's College-like college here, we think that if we all win, we all win. And so there needs to be lots of different options. We have a vision for folks from here going to Wisconsin and going to college, because some people should go away to college. And we also have a vision for the Roanoke Valley being a place that people go away to college and come to. And so where Masterpiece Alliance is right now is kind of in the dreaming stage. We've been learning a lot from Shepherd's College about what would be required. We have been looking around to say where would be the right place for something like this. We actually have been touring some cool buildings downtown Roanoke that are for sale and thinking, could these be places where there's living situations as well as storefronts that could be turned into college space, and just kind of sort of dreaming. Obviously, dollars are something that has to happen. We're not really worried about it. We think those things will fall into place when people catch the vision. We've thought about what would be the classes one would take here in the Roanoke Valley. And I'll just say this, what if Carilion decided to invest in a medical component to a Shepherd's College-like situation here in the Roanoke Valley? And could a partnership exist there? That seems like something that makes sense. There's restaurants in downtown Roanoke. Could the hospitality or culinary arts fields fit just right there, right around the college? So, these are the sort of dreaming phases we're in right now. And honestly, I would love it if someone who's listening to your radio show and podcast might even say, let's reach out to Masterpiece Alliance and brainstorm how we can make that happen.
I love how Scott just puts these people on blast and all right, speaking it into existence.
Let's go, Carilion.
All right. Well, Scott Habib, Masterpiece Alliance, Brian Canwright, Shepherd's College. Thank you both so much for all that you are doing to support populations, people who have an intellectual developmental disability, and finding the potential in each of them to become masterpieces. They are masterpieces, but for them to be recognized as masterpieces throughout our country. Thank y'all so much for coming on to Buzz for Good and for being a Buzz for Good. Really appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
And that'll do it for today's Buzz for Good. I thank you for tuning in and hope you will continue to follow along with the work that we are doing through my website, buzzforgood.com, as well as our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok, all at Buzz for Good. Until next time, I hope you continue being a Buzz for Good in the community that you hold dear, and continue supporting the nonprofits that are working tirelessly each and every day to make your community an even better place to live. Bye now.